This was a total repudiation of Trump. I mean, end of story. I said on one of the shows last night that people in this country who oppose Trump, right now, we would all strip bare naked and crawl bare naked across broken glass to vote against what he's doing right now. That's how motivated the resistance is to everything Trump's done. So I think the story last night was, man, people are pissed off and scared to death, and they came out and voted.
Zohran Mamdani has now become New York City's first Muslim mayor, the youngest person in more than a century to lead the biggest city in America. The Democratic candidate beat opponents Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Silva. He secured more than 50% of the vote. Now, the campaign saw President Trump openly endorse Andrew Cuomo, a longtime Democrat, over his own Republican candidates in an attempt to stop Mamdani's victory. In his victory speech, Zohran Mamdani addressed the president directly.
If anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
Well, he also addressed his defeated opponent, Andrew Cuomo.
I wish Andrew Cuomo only the best in private life. But let tonight be the final time I utter his name as we turn the page on a politics that abandons the many and answers only to the few.
Now, in his concession speech, Andrew Cuomo congratulated the newly elected mayor to boos from his own supporters.
Congratulations to Zohran Mamdani. That is not right. That is not right. And that is not us. That is not us. This campaign was the right fight to wage. And I am proud of what we did and what we did together.
Well, let's then talk now to Will Pavia, the New York correspondent for The Times. Hi to you, Will.
Hello, John.
Welcome to you. It does feel like a while, doesn't it, since we saw Democrats celebrating, and Democrats of every kind are finding reason to celebrate today.
That's true. It's been ages. And I mean, I think the first year of the Trump presidency, well, I suppose the second Trump presidency, has been sort of so monumentally sort of different, I guess, to the first. And Democrats for so long just looked very shell-shocked, not quite sure how to respond. Do they look for moderate candidates who can peel off some independents, or do they sort of rely on these sort of slightly more exciting, or the candidates that excite younger people on the progressive wing? And we saw a bit of both last night, and I think the party will be very pleased with what they're seeing, even if they don't quite know which horse to pick, perhaps.
Yeah, he's going to become a very familiar name and face, I guess, on both sides of the Atlantic and more widely. One of the biggest figures now opposing President Trump. And just worth noting how the new mayor of New York mobilized very much a coalition of supporters who are united against President Trump and Trumpism.
Yes, that's right. I mean, early on when Mamdani was running, I think some political scientist coined the phrase commie corridor or something, which was the sort of stretch from the sort of slightly trendy area of Queens down through Brooklyn, Williamsburg, sort of area that's quite hipster and quite like lots of sort of young, sort of upwardly mobile kind of people who move to New York and get a job in the arts and so on. And that was sort of the stereotype. But actually, Mamdani appealed both to them and to taxi drivers, to people working in shops and bodegas, and, you know, people running the night, doing night shifts. And he was able to sort of get both of those constituencies in New York and to appeal to sort of some black voters. Andrew Cuomo still sort of won a lot of Orthodox Jews and, you know, appealed to sort of people in slightly wealthier districts. But it's quite a remarkable sort of shift for New York City to suddenly have this mayor who's been elected by what looks like a slightly broader constituency.
Yeah, and we saw the new governors of Virginia and New Jersey elected. As I say, no great surprise about that. These are blue states, but they won by really big and significant margins. And they're centrists, which is well worth noting, because the next stage, I guess, for the Democrats is an argument and a bit of a struggle among themselves to try to define or redefine themselves ahead of the midterm elections and in good time for 2028.
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, they were both of those candidates looked to be on course for victory. In Virginia, you've got lots of people who work in government who were probably affected by Elon Musk's kind of Doge cuts, and now, of course, by the shutdown. New Jersey sometimes looked like a tighter race, although the Republican candidate was running not far behind, and some people wondered if he could sort of if he had a shot. But both of those candidates are quite sort of moderate. In New Jersey, the other sort of takeaway was that people in Latino neighborhoods went Democrat where they'd previously gone for Trump. And that sort of possibly presages something too. And maybe that's ICE raids, and maybe it's, people are dissatisfied with Trump's handling of the economy.
Yeah.
But you're right, there is a big argument to come in the Democratic Party on how to how to pitch themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot there to pick apart in these coming hours and days and months and years. But great to talk to you now, Will. Thank you so much. Now,
Thanks, John.
Let us chat to Antoine Seawright, who is a Democrat strategist and a former advisor to Hillary Clinton. Hello to you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. I guess you are celebrating then, and I guess why wouldn't you? These are good results for your party. But what about your analysis? What's the significance of what happened overnight? Because this is, I guess, just the beginning of a Democratic Party flyback, isn't it?
Look, I think it was transformational and transitional what we saw all across the country last night here in the United States of America. From Prop 50 in California, a very handsome victory. 3 Supreme Court seats in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We have 2 national security moms, 1 in New Jersey, and now the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the trifecta in Virginia, not to mention consequential other races down the ballot. What you saw was a political revival of the Democratic Party. You saw a new coalition come together, and you saw a steady rejection of not only Trumpism, but Maganomics that has taken over the Republican Party.
There won't there, Antoine, be very different interpretations of these results depending on which set of results you look at. The governors of Virginia and New Jersey are not politically precisely aligned with the new mayor of New York. I mean, and it'll be argued, won't it, that Mandani and Mandaniism, if there's such a thing, it won't fly in the same way in swing states in Middle America.
Well, that's the beauty about our party. We pride ourselves on our diversity. At the end of the day, the common thread or the common underpinning that Mandani, Abigail, as well as Mikey had in common was affordability. Again, Maganomics has failed the American people and the American economy. America's too expensive. Rent is up, gas is up, groceries are up, electricity is up. And so there's a real urge and a need for everyday Americans to lower costs. And that was the common thread. But I believe that there's a place in the Democratic Party for Zora Mandani as the mayor of New York, in the same way there's a place for Abigail Spanberger to be the governor of Virginia, Mikey Sherrill to be the governor of New Jersey.
But what does this tell us about your party's search for a message and a messenger to lead the line going into the midterms and going into the next fight for the White House?
It tells us that no community is the same. It tells us that different communities require different voices and different things. But when we are consistent on quality of life, leaning in on affordability, bread and butter, barbershop, and beauty salon issues, the American people respond in a very positive, affectionate way at the ballot box. We saw a coalition of Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Latinos, Black, white, and everything in between show up in historic, handsome fashion last night to vote for Democrats.
Okay. Look, come the general election, one person is going to be the one challenging for the White House, and that person does have to be someone with a clear message and identity.
We take elections one at a time. We put up some victories last night. We've put up some victories since Donald Trump has taken office. Consistently, we've outperformed and overperformed the narrative in every single special election, including in deep ruby red Georgia, where we won 2 statewide public service commission seats last night. And so we continue to outperform the narrative until we get a Democratic nominee for 2028.
Okay, now looking then at last night's, election, the election of the new mayor of New York, he fought, didn't he, on a set of promises he will not be able to fulfill. I mean, higher tax on corporations and wealthy New Yorkers. The governor has to approve that, and the governor will not. And that's needed for free transport, universal childcare. Tell me, Antoine, are we looking at a situation where many of the supporters who took this man to the mayoralty are destined to be disappointed?
Well, I think Zoran Mandani did a good job of focusing on affordability. Obviously, he's going to have to work with his council. He's going to work with the folks in Albany. He's going to have to work with the General Assembly. He's going to have to work with the governor in order to implement some of the things he wants to do. But that's what the campaign is all about. Having aspiration and being inspirational at the same time. Obviously, there are constraints to any office of what folks can and cannot do. We saw that with President Trump and some of the empty promises he promised during the course of the campaign. Naturally, he has not done any of them and could not do any of them. But aspirational, inspirational things that we see quite frequently on both sides of the aisle. Now, Zoran Mandani is going to have to focus on governing and implementation, and he's going to have to learn addition and multiplication, not subtraction and division.
Oh, Antoine C. Wright, Democratic strategist, thank you for joining us here on the program. Joe, welcome to the program.
Always good to be with you, my friend.
It's great to have you back. Joe, what for you are the lessons of these elections?
I think it's pretty simple again, kind of the same old story here. This was a total repudiation of Trump. I mean, end of story. I said on one of the shows last night that people in this country who oppose Trump, right now, we would all strip bare naked and crawl bare naked across broken glass to vote against what he's doing right now. That's how motivated the resistance is to everything Trump's done. So I think the story last night was, man, people are pissed off and scared to death, and they came out and voted.
Right. I mean, when it comes to, the new kid on the block in New York, Mandani, his mayoralty, it may well not be as socialistic as it sounds. He'll struggle to get support for the taxes on the rich and businesses. The New York governor has to approve that. Could it end up with his programme being, as it were, pared down, cut down, in which case will voters be disappointed, or might he just end up appealing to both ends, radicals and moderates?
Look, you're right. His politics are not my politics, even though we're in the same party. And in fact, according to the data yesterday, even a lot of his voters don't really understand and support a lot of the policies that he's touted. He's talked about affordability, making things affordable. Well, what the heck does that mean? I think a lot of what he would try to do will get pared down. He's a smart young man. I think he realizes he can't really do a lot of the things he wants to do. I expect he'll surprise people by how well he works with other people who don't think like he does.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder where the argument goes inside your party. It's the beginning of the fight back, I think, from one point of view. I just want to point out briefly, Joe, you used an expression now, which a moment ago, which in this country is capable of causing offence. So I just want to apologise to anyone who did take offence, as I'm required to do. Tell me a bit about the argument coming in the Democratic Party about its direction now, because Mandani in New York, which is a huge city, it's not the same as a statewide election, let alone two, but he's of a very different cast to the new governors of Virginia and New Jersey.
I think what my new party has to learn is this is a big country with 50 different states. Zoran Mandani, God bless him, he couldn't win in South Carolina or Tennessee or Kentucky. Abigail Spanberger, the new governor of the state of Virginia, she's a moderate. She couldn't win in some of the real hardcore progressive areas. What my new party has done wrong for a while is try to fit everybody under one national brand. And because of that, Democrats lost a lot of moderate and conservatives around the country who did win in other places. I think last night shows the Democratic Party that it takes all different kinds all over this country.
Okay. Now, let me just ask you briefly and lastly about what happened in California. That referendum, it maybe got less attention, for people, as it were, just entranced by what happened in New York and the other contests, but it was enormously significant because California will now go about redrawing its congressional district boundaries, and that follows Texas, Republican Texas, doing the same thing. Are we now then, Joe, heading into a kind of running tit-for-tat battle of states redrawing their boundaries? Now, that's commonly called gerrymandering, and from the point of view of, clean, clear democracy, it's maybe rather worrying, isn't it?
Well, what's especially worrying is we always gerrymander in this country, but we do it at the end of every decade. We do it every 10 years. What Texas started, the tit for tat, is to gerrymander mid-decade because Donald Trump demanded it. So California responded in kind. My hope is, I think Republicans have learned, this could bite us in the rear end. My hope is a lot of these other states now thinking about doing mid-decade redistricting right now will kind of call a detente and pull back, and it'll just be Texas and California, and that's it, and let's move on.
All right, Joe Walsh, always good to talk to you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.